When it comes to martial arts and MMA, strong feet and ankles are critical to balance, agility, and explosiveness. We talked to biomechanics expert and co-host of The Deadliest Warrior, Geoff Desmoulin, about why he uses the AFX. In addition to being a highly respected researcher, Geoff is an accomplished athlete, former member of the military, and a black belt in karate.
My name is Geoff Desmoulin. You might know me as one of the hosts on the show Deadliest Warrior on Spike TV, but I've also got some education behind me. I've got 2 degrees in kinesiology, I've got a degree in biomedical engineering, and I've almost got a degree in mechanical engineering, just finishing off my doctorate. So let's start with basic biomechanics. Let's talk about muscles, specifically the muscles of the foot. We've got, depending on what reference you read, you've got anywhere from 19 to 20 muscles of the foot, okay? And they're organized in 4 different layers. Very complex. We know muscles are important. To me, they're the active spring and damper of the human body. And the stronger those muscles are, the more that you can modulate those active springs and dampers, okay? What does that translate to? It translates to greater skill, greater coordination. Let me give you an example. When you co-contract your muscles around a joint, okay, it prepares that joint for action, essentially reducing your reaction time to something. That's something very important for martial arts and MMA, okay? Now, if a guy has a range from 0 to 10, another guy has a range from 0 to 100, who do you think can modulate his skill level better and react faster to a given situation? What does that translate to? Stronger muscles, greater skill, greater coordination, greater modulation. Let's get into those. Now, I don't know what style you studied, but I studied Isshin-ryu karate, and the first thing that happened when I arrived at the dojo was I took off my shoes and socks. I bowed at the dojo door, I walked in, and I started learning stances. Now, why do you think that might be? This is the connection that martial arts and MMA have to the ground, okay? They're not trying to keep the floor clean, that can be cleaned. They're trying to get you the sensation of your feet on the ground, that connection to the ground. Then they start working you in stances. And the big thing in stances is getting a base of support where your center of gravity falls inside that base of support, okay? So my center of gravity is somewhere around my belly button and about halfway through inside my body. If I was to drop a plumb line, it would land somewhere here. So I've got my feet on either side of that, on either side, but also in front and back, okay? And that's where this starts. And you can kind of, the analogy here is a house. So my legs are the walls of the house, but my feet are the foundations of that house. And if that foundation is weak, it means nothing to have strong legs. Okay, so we talked about stances. Let's talk about movement as it relates to MMA and martial arts. In my style, Isshin-ryu karate, we used to use the basic stance, drawing a line from my heel to my toe. That's how we would practice in the dojo. But in a fight, it became something like this, okay? And we also worked on the 45s or a V, something like that. If you were going to get attacked, you were either going to go to one side or the other. Now let's look at what that means on foot and ankle strength. If somebody's coming into me like this, I want to move like that, okay? That's that 45 that I'm talking about, that V. Now, what am I doing with my legs? I preload the knee, okay? I'm creating an extensor torque at the hip that's driving a load down through my lower leg, but what's my foot doing, okay? I'm pushing off like a speed skater, right? But what's the new advancement in speed skating? The clap skate, okay? What's that clap skate doing? It's allowing the speed skater to fully extend at the ankle and even the toes, okay? Using that 19 to 20 muscles in that movement. What does that do? Speaking as an engineer, it increases the impulse or the amount of time that the force is applied in that movement, allowing you to move further and faster, okay? It also increases the amount of work and the amount of energy that you can actually complete in that movement. But look at the angle that I'm applying that load. It's going down at an angle something like this. So there's a component of the load that is actually transverse across my foot and ankle, okay? That's a lateral plane. What exercise that you can think of actually works that plane? We gave an example from Isshin-ryu karate. That's the style I've been trained in and I'm a black belt in. But let's talk about other styles. Let's talk about Krav Maga, for example, who takes a very basic boxing stance, okay? Where you're kind of flat-footed on your lead foot, but your back foot, your rear foot, is actually on the ball of the foot. Okay, and what you're trying to do there is create that spring in that foot. Okay, and what did I talk about with the muscles at the top of this segment was that your muscles are the springs and dampers of your body. And the stronger those muscles are, the more that you can modulate them, the more skill you can get, the more coordination you can get out of them. So a basic move is just a jab with Krav Maga. But what you were trying to do here is explode off your rear ball of your foot. And as soon as you land with the front foot, you're placing that jab. Okay, so it looks something like this. Like that, right? And then back. Very basic move, but the explosiveness comes from the ball of the foot. Those 19 to 20 muscles we've been talking about gotta be strong to allow you to get that explosiveness. So now I have to explain to you why AFX. Well, speaking as an engineer and a scientist, this is why I think it's the tool of choice. Number one is it allows you to work through the full range of motion of your ankle and foot, okay? But also it does that in multiple planes, and we saw it's not just plantar flexion, it's not just dorsiflexion that you need. You need rotational strength as well. Again, 19 to 20 muscles in the foot, and you've got to be able to work those through the full range of motion and on different planes. The AFX does that. Another thing I like about the AFX is it's got multiple resistance bands. So if you're coming off an injury, for example, you can start with the bands that are designed for that. But as you progress, you've got bands that maybe only 5% can even stretch, okay? So very high resistance at the very top end. Again, as an engineer and scientist, I've got to rely on the evidence, okay? And AFX has done that. They've went out and performed several studies. One shows that the AFX can actually increase balance, okay? And as we talked about before, it's that base of the support. It's the foundation of the house. It's got to be strong or the whole house collapse. Now, a second study the AFX team put together was an agility test. And they showed that athletes using the device improved agility over time. And applying that outcome to MMA and martial arts is pretty much a no-brainer. If you're in the octagon, getting around the octagon in a mobile fashion is going to play to your advantage. The third study the AFX team put together was an explosiveness test, and they showed over time athletes that use the device significantly improved their explosiveness. Applying those results to MMA and martial arts, again, a no-brainer. Almost every technique that I showed you here today involves explosiveness. The faster that you can get in and get out of your opponent, the more damage that you can do in a faster amount of time.